This is the American Indians, Indigenous Peoples' Truths. Justice for all, the most dangerous show on media anywhere. OCO and greetings. I'm Winter Nightwolf, and this is the Indigenous Peoples' Truths. Before we get started, I would like to make this announcement. Let's take a moment to pause to acknowledge the traditional stewards of this land that we now reside on, and especially their ancestors, descendants, and all indigenous people who live now and have ever lived in our regions of Turtle Island. Turtle Island is what we call the United States. I have before I do this, I have a very special guest tonight. He's a friend and a family member. He's also, I consider him to be a scholar. And I will be back to introduce him in a few minutes. But first is Don Walker with news from Indian country. Don't go away. I'll be back shortly.
Osio, Agidohi, Agilahi. Hello to my brothers and sisters. Tonight is an op-ed. I'm going to talk about bail reform in Indian country. First, let me tell you what bail amounts to. Bail is the assurances that the court requires for your appearance on a pending charge. Since you are not guilty yet, you're being accused of something. And that is they can require that in the form of cash. They can require it in the form of a bondsman. There are other means of doing it. There's a property bond. There's a surety bond on this, but there's a number of ways of doing it. And it's not only for your appearance in court, but is your conduct in the meantime. Be of good behavior and keep the peace. Plus, it could be any conditions the court may put on you pending a formal bail hearing. Now, that could be a place of abode, people of contact, consumption of alcohol or narcotics, improvement programs, a number of things. What area does this cover? Well, the push right now in Indian country primarily is in the areas of the Sioux Nations and the Navajo, as those are the biggest areas tribal-wise of land. Why is this important? Most of this concerns Class 3 and Class 4 misdemeanors, which are normally not jailable offenses. There are a few that are, but most of them are not. And this covers those, and they're low-level situations. And right now, those areas have a preset bond for whatever condition or charge has been placed on you. For example, if you're accused of A, then the bond on the list will be A, which could be $25, $2,500, could be any amount. These are preset, so you're not before somebody that can make a decision. You're looking at a chart and picking a number. Why is this tough? In a lot of circumstances in these areas, these are vast areas. This could be a very minor situation. A bond is required, a cash bond of somebody. They could be miles, they could be hours from their relatives in order to put together whatever the cash amount is. And you can be probably very assured there, especially in Navajo country, that there aren't any ATM machines out by the cactus plant. And with internet connections, probably a lack of cell phones. So you're putting a hardship on them there in distance. It could be their elders. Now you've got an older person that is held on some minor situation with a bond, and if they don't have it in their pocket, they have trouble having access to it. And it could be a great distance to get that access. Let's also say that the courts don't adjourn again for a bail hearing until Monday, Tuesday, or some point during the week if it falls on a weekend or a holiday, or a circuit. And that could be the circuit judge won't be back in that area for a month for a bail hearing. So you got a lot of hardships here on these things. The ones who are looking to reform are the non-violent, non-weapon, non-narcotic controlled substance situations. And I'm strongly in favor of them having a good hard look at this. In the Commonwealth, we don't do the same thing. When you're arrested, you have the right to be brought immediately before the judicial that can grant jail or bail and decide these circumstances. At a bail hearing, when you're in front of a live person doing this, they have a chance to look at your criminal history, the nature and circumstances of the charge, your affiliation, your roots in the community, your educational background. They can take the time, if they do it, take the time to add up all the circumstances they can come up with to reach a fair decision. At that time, they can let you go strictly on a signature. They can let you go on a recognizance bond, which is a promissory note that you'll promise to pay if you violate the court's conditions instead of putting up real cash, or they can require serious security, either cash or a bondsman. The property bond is not very popular anywhere, which allows you to post your property value instead of a cash bond. The problem with that is you got no way to look it up right on the spot to see if that person really owns that property and if it's really worth that much money. Should they be doing this bail reform? You betcha. I'd hate to see in my own imagination, I can see him bringing granny in or grandpa in on a very minor charge with, let's say, $100 bond, and the person doesn't have it or access to it. Now they sit there 3, 4, 5 days in jail. Their family's wondering about this. You know, where are they? What happened to them? They're got an employment situation, maybe a problem with access to their medicines. So there's a lot of reasons to go forward with this and do some bail reform in Indian country. One last thing on it too. When somebody is placed on this, if they do not report back as ordered to the courts or adhere to the conditions that are listed on their recognizance form, somebody's going to catch up to them later. They'll get stopped at a traffic stop or go through an airport or something and get caught on failing to do what the court ordered them to do. And then they're now facing 2 charges, the first one and the second one, of violating conditions of release. So let's look forward to those areas, and maybe it wouldn't hurt all over the country to do this. It's just prevalent out there. Commonwealth, I told you, is different in that you have the right to be brought before the judicial immediately, forthwith, for somebody to make a decision about your freedom pending the outcome of this matter. Jay, I hope that offered some education to our viewing audience out there. I take it back to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Don, my brother from the same tribe, the Cherokee Nation. I have a very special guest tonight. He is the author of the book, Don't Call My Dummy No Dummy. He's a commissioned officer in the United States Army, He earned his Bachelor's of Arts degree in Management Information Systems, his Master's degree in Business Administration in 2003 from St. Martin's University in Lacey, Washington. He attended Fielding University in 2004 as a PhD candidate in Human Organizational Development. He also is the proud father of 11 beautiful spirits that age from 10 to 38 years of age. Him and his family now call Texas home, where he spends his most energy ensuring that his youngest child is ready for this world. I'm not going to tell you his name because I'm going to let him tell you his name. Hello, Sandra. How are you?
Hi, Jay. Good to see you.
You as well.
Thank you.
So let's bring our guests in for tonight. His name OCO Jameel.
OCO. My name is JAMEEL SHAMSID-DEEN, and I'll start in the Cherokee language. OCO Doichu con JAMEEL SHAMSID-DEEN.
Honored to have you, man.
Welcome, Jameel.
Thank you.
Good to
And
see
that
you.
what you see on the screen is the book he wrote is Don't Call My Dummy No Dummy. And I think that goes back to something your grandma used to say to you, right?
Yes, sir. Grandma used to use it all the time. And it took me in my late teens to really understood what she meant. And it was profound. So for me, it helped me to take this book, which I started, and I have to preference, this book started out as a memoir journal for my children. And the more information I found, I said, this information can be used by anyone. And so for me, it opened the door to what we have in front of us. Don't call my dummy no dummy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, it makes me think of Fred Sanford a little bit, right?
Fred wasn't around when Mama was saying, don't call my dummy no dummy at that point.
He probably stole that line from her, right? And it says, in loving memory of Kenya Tyler, may you rest in peace with our ancestors.
Yes.
Until we meet again. And he also says that he dedicates his work to his ancestors, his bloodline family, past and present. Mama Eula May, your words are the title of my work. I hear you saying this as it echoes in my head because you said it on a regular basis when I was growing up. I miss you every day. And I am thankful you shared your spirit with me. My mother and father, Mary and George, my consort and battle buddy, Anita, my children, Muhammad, Travius, Janiyah, Jervona, Kenyana, Vajan, Olivia, Jael, Jaleel, Lucian, and Imani, may you rest in peace. So that is just, so touching to me because I know what it is to lose family members and other folks that are like family to me. We lost somebody today, I did, and we're going to do a dedication to her as we end this show, this broadcast tonight. So let's go to a break and come right back. And I am so willing and able and wanting to, with no patience at all, to get started with this conversation tonight. Thank you, Jameel, and thank you, Sandra. And of course, thank you, Leslie. We'll be back shortly. JAMEEL, may I say this to you from my heart? I am so proud of you. You are a full-blood Native American.
Thank you, Uncle Jay.
You're from the Tuscarora, Lumbee people of North Carolina, and you're from what people in Virginia?
Virginia is power. It has to be Powhatan. We were in. I've traced our family to King City, all the way up through to DC. So that was the Confederation there. But then I'm wondering where or how it's been rewritten, and I'm still researching, Uncle Jay. So eventually, it'll show its head. I keep asking the ancestors to show me what tribes I belong to in Virginia.
Well, can I give you a little bit of history on the Powhatan Confederacy?
Yes, sir.
The Powhatan Confederacy, the chief was Wahum Shinakawa.
Mm-hmm.
He was the father of Matoka, the one that Walt Disney and all those other fools called Pocahontas. That was not her name.
Mm-hmm.
They had been battling these people for quite some time, and they captured a lot of European prisoners, just like the Europeans captured some of our people. But the most important capture was Matoka, aka Pocahontas. And John Smith, Captain John Smith, but let me tell you about how you became a captain back then. You owned a ship, so all of a sudden you're a captain. They captured this girl, and she was just she was a teenager. She was maybe 15 or 16 years old. And they took her out into the sea where the boat could not be seen. And they sent an emissary to tell Wahum Shinakawa, we got your daughter. And if you will release our guys, then we will bring her back to you. That never happened. And while they had her out there at sea, almost every sailor on that ship had his way sexually with her. Well, Wahum Shinakawa lived up to his end of the bargain. He turned the guys over. They never returned her. So, from what I can surmise of the story and people that I've talked to that are historians that are Native people, said that he died from a broken heart because that girl was his heart. So I don't think it's going to be too hard for you to find out which of those tribes in the Powhatan Confederacy you have a bloodline. And the reason they came together under Wahum Shinakawa was because they were being attacked, tribals, individually. And they said, well, let's go under the flag of the Powhatan Confederacy, and we can build a fortress against them, protecting ourselves. These people that came across the Atlantic Ocean, they were not anything royal or authenticated people. They were actually chased out of Europe by the crown heads of Europe because they didn't like them. They practiced these religions, these earth religions and all that stuff. And they didn't travel in the same direction that the governments of Europe had preferred. So nothing came over here that was aristocratic. These were people that were running away from Europe only because they couldn't take the pressure of what they were offered there in their own homelands. End of story for right now.
Well, in the research that I've done so far, I've taken myself back to Nanny, TAINO. So I know it will eventually lead back to Powhatan. That is still research that I'm doing. One of the things, once I retire from the military, I want to go back and hit their archives. I'm looking forward to that. That's something I'm looking forward to.
Well, if you can take my help, I'd love to help you do that.
Yes, sir.
So your book, don't call
All
my
370 pages of it.
don't call my dummy no dummy. Now, why do the slave numbers, American Indian slavery, tell a different story?
So I think one of the biggest things that we lose focus on is numbers for years. And I'll go back till my teenage years. We've been hearing about this 12 million African slaves being taken from Africa or the west coast of Africa and brought to America. Well, you know, growing up in America and me being a researcher that I believe I am, when I was growing up, we had to literally go to the libraries. Information became more available in the late 90s or mid to late 90s. And so when you start researching this thing, you find that just a little research, the real information is there and it will astound you. There is no true visibility that's ever been given the fact, or no one's given any visibility to the fact that in 2018, Skip Gates, Professor Gates, said openly that in the whole of slavery, 92,000 people were taken from the coast of Africa and brought to North America. That's an important fact because when he was telling all those people, you ain't Indian, you ain't Indian, you ain't Indian, you ain't Indian, he was saying there was 12 million slaves brought from Africa. But in 2019 or 2018, he changed it up. Not to discredit 12 million or 92,000. 92,000. We can't discredit the 200 million Americans that were here, 200 million that were here and documented.
Yeah.
And then if you take it one step further, in 2017, Dr. Fisher from Brown University said 2.5 to 5.5 American Indians went into slavery. No one talks about the book, The Other Slavery by Renez Renos.
I know
There's a book about us going into slavery. Yes, sir. And people don't want to talk about that. And that's the sad part.
Right. And I tell you something else they don't want to talk about. Before Juneteenth happened in Texas, and the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, they don't talk about the large number of Native American people that were enslaved, chained and shackled there. They don't want to talk about the ones that are known as the Latino, which is, I think that's crap too, because Latino, please, Latin is a language of the Roman Catholic Church that they hid a lot of the dirt that they did behind. No one want to talk about the white folks that were enslaved there. And they, you know, they had a way of getting out of slavery because, first of all, they didn't call them slaves, they called them indentured servants. But their children did not have to face all of the ramifications of slavery because they came behind their white parents. They called them indentured servants. So let's get back to what we were talking about, the numbers. This whole thing, Andres Resendez's book, The Other Slavery, I interviewed him twice on my used to be radio broadcast about it. And he was so deep into it. He said to me, Alfred, do you know that the first slaves in America were our people? I said, exactly. They did raids and captured people and sent them off to Europe as slaves. And Christopher Columbus, his first voyage back to Spain, in the bottom of that ship, he had spices and fruits and things that were not known in Europe. But in the whole of that ship, he had hundreds of shackled and chained Native American people, took them back to Spain and gave them to the deacons of those villages there, and they sold them into slavery. So I don't want to hear none of that crap, you know. And the other thing you want to talk, you know, there's another book, It's called Mohawks on the Nile. I got a friend that's a Mohawk from Asquasasni, and he actually knew some of the guys. What happened? Europe was getting their butts kicked in Egypt, and they captured some great European. I guess that's what they want to call him. It wasn't great to me. And he was a military officer, and they had no way of getting up the rapids of the Nile to get this man back. So they heard about the Mohawks who were actually able to navigate up the rapids. But by the time they got there, they had already killed this man. The great Mahdi killed him. And they had made the Mohawks a promise that if you go over here to Egypt with us, help us to free our officer, then we will make sure that you get transported back to the Americas and give you some money. Well, another lie they told. They never got them back to America. And there were Mohawks on the Nile that lived along the Nile. And they were wondering, why are these Native American canoes parked at some of these pyramids?
Hey, Jameel, you got Jay started. You got him started.
I'm going to.
No, it's
So-
okay, Uncle Jay, because those are things that I'll be able to dig into further because there's more to come. This is just my first attempt, but I wanted to give more credit. We can't discredit the horrors that the ancestors endured with the English attempt at
Yes,
slavery.
right.
See, it wasn't just the English, it was tribal rivalry also,
Yes.
because the number of what we would call white didn't exist during that time period. So they had to use tribal rivalry to enslave the American Indians that they did, to put them in England, to put them on plantations, to send them to Spain, France, Italy. They couldn't have got there without turncoats of our own
Absolutely.
that helped them.
And the same thing happened with Africa. They couldn't have just gone into Africa and picked off black people and brought them over here as slaves. I hold African tribes guilty of selling our black brothers and sisters into slavery because the white man couldn't just go into Africa.
Right.
Please.
And you're right about that, Uncle Jay. And I think that's the biggest part of, and I bring this up in the book, one of the things that a lot of people don't use is common sense.
Mm-hmm.
In colonization happened in a pattern. First place was colonized was America. Next was Australia. After Australia, it went not to any of the Polynesian islands. It went to Africa. Then it went to Polynesia. So in this pattern of colonization, it wasn't until 1870 that colonization hit the shores of Africa, because most people forget about the Moors owning both eastern and western waters of Africa.
Yes.
So it was physically impossible to colonize them. It didn't happen until 1870 when Belgium went in and they started doing all the mean things they did. They killed up to 10 million documented people in the rubber tree.
Yeah, that was King Leopold.
King Leopold, yes, sir.
Okay, so let's get
And
back to the book. I'm sorry, go ahead, Sam.
That's okay. So in the book, Jameel, you talk about that you wrote the book for future generations. And one of the triggers for that was because you've been around the world. So
Yes.
you're in the military, you've been
Yes.
around the world, you've lived in other countries, you've fought in foreign wars,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
you've experienced things that really make you see life through a different view.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
you wanted your, if I heard correctly, 11 children.
Yes.
11, 1, 1.
That's
You wanted your-
that's Indian for you.
So you wanted your 11 children to understand the nuances of that and the nuances as they relate to your indigenous history and ancestry and the current world.
Yes, ma'am.
So I know in your book you talk a lot about Lumbee people. You talk about Charles Oxendine.
Hmm.
Oxendine, of course, is a Lumbee surname for the most part.
Yes.
And you talk about Charles Oxendine in 1837
Hmm.
um, as being punished as a free Negro.
Yes, ma'am.
So things like that are the things that you wanted your 11 children to understand. So talk a little bit about the main thing, maybe for your oldest son. I'm
So,
assuming your oldest child is a son. So
yeah,
what was the main thing that you wanted your oldest child, as opposed to your youngest child, to get from reading your book?
the biggest part of it is what I found just living. My great grandfather, God rest his soul, he passed away in 1981. I lived above him in Philadelphia. His father, Alex, was on the Lumbee Rolls. I knew that. When he passed away in 72, I knew he passed away, and granddaddy had to go to bury his father down in Lumberton, North Carolina. The more I dug into it, I knew he was Indian. Then I found his death certificate, and he was Indian. I found him being spoke of, and I started tracing his family, or tracing his family further back. And I found the Indian muster rolls of 1812 that
Mhm.
had both of my fifth great grandfathers on it, Silas Strickland and Thomas Big Tom Locklear.
Locklear,
And I
yeah.
have both of their names, 16 and 17. So I was like, wait a minute, this makes no sense. How are they Indians? How is my great great grandfather an Indian? His son is on the same roll, and we all became something entirely different. That doesn't make sense.
No,
So
no.
I wanted to make sure that my children knew what I knew, and they have a choice.
Yeah, the colored indicator.
Yes, ma'am.
A lot of indigenous peoples back in the early 1900s, were classified as colored.
Yeah.
My parents included. So, and my parents, born in North Carolina. So North Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina, East Coast. East
Mhm.
Coast indigenous people kind of got, you know, I don't know, the start of the fires that were ignited to divide us, conquer
Mhm.
us,
Yes,
make
ma'am.
us blend into all the other communities and not be
Who we are.
unique.
Yes, ma'am.
Well,
But in
just look at this picture.
yes,
I mean, some of those people look like my relatives, and this whole mess about how is an Indian supposed to look like? Certainly not. Certainly not the Hollywood conception of what an Indian looks like. That's the biggest bunch of crap they ever put out there. And I'm so happy that I'm living today to refute that. Um, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut across you, nephew.
no, it's good, Uncle Jake, because you're making a point. One of the things that I found is that over the last 130 years, yeah, 130 to 150, what's transpired is colorism has been used against us
Yes.
to divide us and stop us from being a people.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I have to say it because I grew up in the 70s, the paper bag test was real.
Yes.
I didn't become cool until Wesley Snipes. So it
Well,
was
it's
it was my light-skinned cousins that had the game. So I have to say that for
mm,
we did it to ourselves with colorism. And that's the sad part.
I keep getting this message from Marina Hernandez, and she's from South America, I believe.
Hmm.
And she says, those people look just like my people,
Hmm.
indigenous people of South America.
Hmm.
And it's very true.
Hmm.
And Marina, thank you for bringing that to our attention because I already knew that, but a lot of these people that are watching this broadcast, they had no idea. The little girl with the two braids, the picture that was just up there, that looks like my Aunt Etta. And she had hair all the way down to her waist. But my grandma's hair, uh, she could sit on it. I remembered when two of my aunts were braiding my grandma's hair. One was over on this side of the room, way over there on the other side of the room, braiding grandma's hair. And I was so fascinated. I was a little boy. I said, Grandma, how you get all that hair? She says, well, it grew naturally, baby. Okay. Marina is actually from Texas, and she says her parents are indigenous from Mexico. So if you're ready, I got another question for you, nephew.
Yes, sir.
Why must we use the parallels of wars and riots and massacres against Indians, Negroes, blacks, and coloreds against timelines that are coupled with the influx of Europeans, in parentheses, Christians / pale, to see the truth? Why must we have to always use that? Why can't we use our own damn history?
Well, that references, as you get further, anyone who gets further back in the book, they're going to see that I use the timelines of riots, massacres, and wars from the beginning of America, or what has been written about America, to our current what America is. And I have to say this and give them all the props in the world. The people who have industrialized America have been the greatest in documenting history, or their history. So the information exists. And I'm not talking about not just going 100 years, 200 years. We can go back documented to 1365, where they had people coming in and having contact with Americans. So this information exists, and you have to look at it. So with the wars, who were they at war with? Okay, they were at war with American Indians. But when you put that up against, and this I'm bringing from a military standpoint.
Yes.
I'm told that this took place in 1776. But when you look at the wars for the next 10 years, from 1776 forward to 86, they were Cherokee wars.
Yes. Yes.
So you have to look at the parallels. Then you go back and you say, okay, well, what else was going on? Well, they were having riots during this same time period. Well, what were they having riots against? Black people. Why? Why were black people? They were supposed to be slaves. This makes no sense.
I know.
Okay, you're warring with Indians, you're having riots with black people, and then you're killing whole towns of colored people during the same period. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. It just physically, there wasn't enough influx of what we would call white people, and I hate to use that word, to dominate anything in America, because and I think people forget it, there was the Black Plague from the 1600s. The Black Plague, just use that for what it is. It killed 50 million people.
Yeah.
60% of the European population.
The bubonic plague.
The bubonic plague, excuse me.
Right.
Yes.
No, you're right. You're right.
And with that, there was a smaller number of people. In 1751, Benjamin Franklin, Banneker, I don't know. Just let's go with Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin wrote, and I'm going to quote it, that Benjamin Franklin in 1751, he quoted, "The number of purely white people in the world is proportionately very small. All Africa is black and tawny. Asia is chiefly tawny. America, exclusively of the newcomers, wholly so. And in Europe, the Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, and Swede are generally what we consider a swarthy complexion.
Yes.
And the Germans are also. The Saxons, accepted, and the English make up the principal body of white people on the face of the earth." Now, he lived during that time to write that. So this is where I believe the twist comes in, that we have to use common sense. If this man is telling you there's only a small percentage of these people called white and everybody else is of color, because tawny, swarthy, if you look at it, they're ruddy colors by definition. And that's one of the things I put in the book. I gave the definition for what it truly meant. So something happened that we're still missing. And this is where the research, Uncle Jay, still comes in for me. I left breadcrumbs because hopefully there's a smarter person than me that will be able to dig even further and say, that's why that happened.
I know. I want to say hello to my, halito, to our Choctaw brothers and sisters that are watching us. And Joseph Cooper, he says, Osio, Tahichu, in Cherokee. He says, Halito, Chim, Akamuka, in Choctaw. And also he says, Haitito, which is Shawnee. Yeah. And thank you so much, brother. And he says, and Marina Hernandez, don't forget about the Italiana people. No, I can never forget about that because one of my closest friends is Cherokee Italian.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that all goes back to tell you one thing, that we are all members
Of the same family.
the human family.
Yes, sir.
Chief Joseph, Sitting Bull, Crazy Horse, Red Cloud. Whenever they met people that didn't look like them, they didn't make a difference in them. They just said they're members of the human family, just another part of the family. And I think this is what we all need to start doing instead of trying to separate us, you know?
And
Go ahead.
Uncle Jay, and you just made the perfect point and segue. As Black Elk said, if you have one drop of Indian blood, that's your choice to be an Indian or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's right.
That's
Learn
right.
about it, claim it, own it, and represent
Live it.
Live it.
And there's-
Exactly.
That's where the problem is. And this is why I stay to colorism as the divide for our family.
Yes.
Because we keep using something that has no base.
No, not at all. And you know, when you make your way up here to this area,
Yes, sir.
I'm going to take you to meet the chief of the Piscataway Indian Nation, Chief Billy Tyak. And he's like an uncle to me. I had him on one of my radio broadcasts, and it was called Who is an Indian? And at the end of the show, he says, well, I'll tell you the truth, Nightwolf. An Indian is one who carries the sacred ancient blood of the Western Hemisphere in his or her veins. He said, I don't care if it's got black in it, Chinese in it, or gray squirrel in it. If you got that blood, then you're an Indian. He said, if not, you belong to a special tribe, the Wanabes. I said, what's the Wanabe tribe? He said, the wannabes.
Yes, sir.
Now, we also know that one of the great dividers has been with Dr. Walter Plecker.
Mm-hmm.
Walter Ashby Pecker.
Yeah, Pecker. The father of eugenics.
Yes, sir.
This man became in Virginia the director of vital statistics. And while he was the director of vital statistics, anybody that was born as a Native American, he would not allow that on their birth certificates. It was always mulatto, colored,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Paper
So-
genocide.
Yeah, exactly. This colonialism go back so far to be the prime villain of separating us as a people, you know.
Mhm.
And I can't understand, you know, they came here uninvited. We didn't ask for their damn green cards or anything else. They stepped into our pristine waters and bountiful homelands and thought, oh, this is ours. And hell, it ain't. No, it's not yours, you know. What about the people that were already here? They completely ignored that.
Yes, sir.
So, okay. Now, I got another question for you. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Why our human rights are the only fight following the rule of law for our heritage and posterity. Why is it human rights?
So I tie it to human rights because it's about our heritage. So if you go back and you look, there's been 3 vehicles that have been successful in hiding the truth through education in the early 1900s: eugenics, the Daughters of the Confederates, and
Mhm.
educational revisionism, if you want to call it,
Right.
which took place started in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. They continued changing education. Most people don't see what really transpired to us. I use the parallels back to, if we as a people just look at how do we get there? Our ancestors weren't given things the way we think. If you look at 1924, we were given the Snyder Act, which made us American citizens.
Yes.
We became American citizens. And it's like, okay, now we're American citizens, but what didn't we receive to help us be American citizens? The opportunity to be political and to use our numbers to affect change in our society. We became, as American citizens, dependents of America.
Mhm.
Remember, through the 15th Amendment, which was passed in 1870, I believe it was, which gave rights to everybody, regardless of race. We, American Indians, didn't get that right until 1824. Now, it's widely known that in the academic arena, I think across the globe, everyone knew that America pre-colonial was a Negro continent. It's written.
Right.
You got too many books that says this is the way it is. One of the most disturbing pieces about America, and when I say America, I'm talking both North and South America, which were populated by melanated beings, brown people, black people, with thriving communities, great civilization,
Mhm.
big cities, global commerce, all of the trade that you could think of. All of that conversation has been stifled between 1894 through the Civil Rights Act, which was the Indian Civil Rights Act of 1968.
Yeah.
They started opening up the doors for us to learn again. But
Mhm.
prior to those dates, they were writing a history and nobody challenges it today. And I think that this book gives me an opportunity to say, I got you. I think I see this for what it is. All I'm asking for is the truth. Let me have my heritage, and y'all do whatever it is you want. I'm going to buy my land. I'm going to do the thing because I'm an American citizen. I'm going to do all the things. But this American Indian is in my blood. I am O positive. I know that it started here. There's no question.
Damn right.
I couldn't have got that blood if I was born somewhere else. It was here.
Hmm.
So I just want to have that dialogue. So it's not about fighting. It's not about arguing. It's about fighting for our heritage. I don't want you to give me a title that you recognize somebody. No, accept me for who I really am. And then the real conversations can be had, because it's not about dealing with people. It's about dealing with corporations who are persons in America,
Right.
who are on our land making billions and billions and billions of dollars. So it's better for them to keep everybody stupid, because then they don't have to pay taxes for doing trade and commerce.
That's right.
Mm.
You know, I want to share something with you. Several of the viewers just wrote in and talked about how so many of our people denied their heritage because it was safer to do that. Um, my grandfather, on my mom's side was a full-blood Cherokee,
Mhm,
and you and him the same complexion.
Mm.
My grandmother on that side, I got her complexion.
mhm,
And I asked Grandpa one time, I said, Grandpa, why don't you talk about being an Indian? He said, well, you see your 27 aunts and uncles here? I said, yeah. He said, I was trying to keep my family safe.
Mm.
He said, I hid our Indian and black people to keep my family safe.
Yes, sir.
He said, when I was a young man, there was a bounty on Indians' heads. And he said, they could just come and kill you, kill your children, everybody else, and take everything you got. He said, but they had more respect for black people than they did us.
Yes.
He said, that is why.
That's a perfect point.
Exactly. You know,
It's
I mean,
Uncle Jay, I have to tell you, I asked my mother this years ago.
mhm.
Mom, if you knew all of this, and my mom was born in the 40s, you knew all of this, why did y'all accept Negro and colored? She said, because it was easier to be a Negro.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm like,
That's right.
whoa,
Yes, yes, you know,
That's
and
whoa.
right.
all of you that are watching this broadcast tonight, would you all do me a personal favor? When you finish, go to YouTube and like my show, and also leave a comment, because we need all the viewers we can get. And I'm so happy that you all that are making these comments, you know, I love you to death. So I love you to life, not to death, but to life.
Yes,
And so that we can continue this broadcast and give you information that you will never hear or see anywhere else. You got
so,
that? Get busy.
so Uncle Jay, there's one more piece that I wanted to say on our heritage.
Go ahead.
And saying our heritage is the biggest and only fight is because I believe that once we stand in the right place on the world stage by claiming that we're not extinct, I mean, we're here. We're living in the shadows of American prosperity in the urban cities, which
Yes.
are the reservations, calling ourselves everything but the descendants of a once great people. I
Mhm.
think the world at that point would look differently, because from the beginning of time, the world has grown off of the American Indian. And so, I mean, let me change that. No, it was the Negroes with the music. It was the Negroes with the food. Oh, it was the Indians. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? Those people are running synonymous with everything the world has grown off of.
Mm.
Where
And
the
if you
hell did
look,
they think barbecue came from? They came from us.
yes, everything.
Everything.
But it's worldwide, and
Yeah.
people today are sitting back waiting on the next trend from some American to do, so they can capitalize on it and monetize it and do it themselves and get paid. This is what happens daily.
We gave them everything, and they're the only ones making money. We need money. Now I
I
got
don't
one.
know.
Let me just point out something. Everybody's looking at us right now. Look at the color shades of us,
Yeah.
right? We cross the spectrum. And
Yeah.
I am indigenous. Jay is indigenous. Jameel, you are indigenous. Leslie, who's not on camera, is indigenous. And we are all different shades of skin tone.
Yeah.
So
Colors.
it's important for people to understand that when you look for indigenous people, you don't look for Tonto. Don't look
Yes.
for
No.
what you think Pocahontas looked like. You know, you could have indigenous people all around you. And we need to have unity. We need to come together. We need to recognize each other. We need to help each other. We need to support each other, promote each other, and, you know, combined, united, without fighting, without division,
Yeah.
we can conquer. And I don't mean that in a bad way. We can conquer the world.
We can overcome this racism, you know.
Yes.
Uncle Jay, I would call it one thing. I wouldn't call it racism. I wouldn't. And the reason why I wouldn't call it racism, that's giving truth to something that doesn't exist.
There you go. There you go.
It doesn't exist.
I
I'm
stand.
not going to accept it. I know I'm an American. I know I'm a descendant of the Americans. Where the problem comes in is within ourselves. We do this. When we say enough is enough, it's going to stop.
Mhm. You know, and the other thing too, Jameel, We need to stop getting attitudes with each other and stop fighting each other over some dumb, stupid stuff, you know.
Yes, sir.
And I'm saying this to the women. Not all, but the ones that I've seen lately, you walk around dressed like a whore and you want respect. Oh, hell no. I'm not going to give you respect. I'm just going to ignore you. And then if you get in my face, I'm going to tell you why I'm ignoring you. You want a man to love you and respect you? Then be a woman. Enough of this hoochie mama stuff. I don't know where the hell that came from. But
That's somebody else's.
Yeah, that's
Look,
not us.
same place the same place the men with the crack showing came from.
Yes,
Well,
yes.
that came from the prisons, you know. And I can tell you a story behind that, but no, we don't need to do that tonight because you know. But young men, pull your damn pants up. Don't nobody want to see your dirty drawers or the crack in your ass. Okay, pull your pants up. That is so disrespectful. And if you got a grandmother, I know your grandma wouldn't like that.
Mm-hmm.
So be respectful. Be a man. Stand up and be a man. Okay. And if a man is brutalizing a woman in your presence,
Stop it.
you need to stop that. You know, I'm an old man. I'm 75 years old. I'll knock the hell out of you if I see you doing that to a woman. You know, we have always respected our women, right, Jameel?
Yes, sir. And I have to say, for every sentiment that you just spoke of, that I think having a vehicle like the American Indian Congress, something that will be our speaking point as a group, as a collective, to put things on table that will bring us back together and stop the division and help with building schools that we need, not to teach them what's on Days of Our Lives and all the rest of it that
Yeah.
they're crazy on.
Yeah.
I mean, real things that can help us as a people not start over, but start anew. Because that's what we have to do. And that comes from inside.
That's right. And you know something else? All you women out there that think that diamonds is a woman's best friend, that's bull crap. No, your best friend is your husband, your brothers, your sisters, your mama, your daddy. Those are your best friends. And stop running after materialism because that ain't going to get you no closer to anything. It's going to get your heart broke, you know. So, and these reality shows, ain't no reality to a reality show. Come on, please. These people, these people are living in a fantasy world. And how the hell do you think you're going to become a part of that? You ain't got no money. You don't have, a lot of you don't have any education. You can't speak, you know, proper English or whatever language you speak. You're so busy trying to be them. Damn them. And, you know, we need to also talk about this social media crap. You know, you had a voice before social media, use it, you know, and do not buy into societal norms. They are meant to make you forget your greatness as the true stewards of this land and of the world. So stand up and be the stewards of this world that the Creator put you here to be. All that other stuff, I wish the hell somebody would tell me that, you know, well, you haven't arrived unless you got a Bentley. Damn a Bentley. It don't make me. I could ride in a damn four-wheel jalopy with a flat tire. I make the vehicle. Okay. All right. So
Jameel, last question from me.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, your 11th child is son or daughter?
Son.
Son. And what is your son's name?
Lucian.
Lucian?
Lucian.
Lucian. Okay. What do you want Lucian to know about your book right now?
It's funny
I know it's a
you
little
bring that up
complex for him
because Lucian is in school right now, and I'm glad you bring this up. Lucian is in school, 4th grade. I haven't let the books at home on the table, but I asked him not to read it yet because I want him to, because he's in regular school. I found out when Lucian was 6, they went on a picnic, and the teacher, my wife, my son were all sitting on the blanket together. And the lady, the teacher, said to my wife, your husband's the black guy. Lucian said, my daddy's not black. My daddy's American Indian.
Wow.
Boom.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Oh, Lucian.
I
Right
was
on
like,
you, Lucian.
oh my God. So I had the conversation with my wife. I said, I'm not going to push this on him to read yet. I want him to get past what's required of him. We talked to him about, he knows everything that I know. I just haven't put it in the proper perspective for him to become as assertive as his daddy is. And so I want to make sure that,
Oh, yes, he is. Yes, he is. When he told the teacher, my daddy ain't black, my dad is American Indian. Excuse me?
but he knows colors.
Yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
knows colors. And to take that to the next extreme, the friend of his that was at there said, no, your daddy is black, because there's no way in the world that you could be that color and he not be black.
Mm.
You
I'm
know
not
what?
black. I'm a
No.
mocha brown. Yeah,
Yeah. You just
you know,
you,
but
you're just a nicer shade of Indian.
yes.
Look,
I
that
spend
image
time out in the
is
sun.
surrounded
my,
by black.
my brother,
Not black though.
no, my
Not
brother,
black.
God rest his soul, he was lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps. He was actually the youngest Native American lieutenant colonel. He graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy in 1976, but he died at 39 from cancer. That boy stood up for his people more than anybody I know. You know, he'll tell you in a minute, I ain't black. Where the hell you get that from? I'm an American Indian. Well, you look like a black man. I don't give a damn what you think I look like. I know what the hell I am. And I love that boy. He was my baby brother.
That's a
So
point, Uncle Jay.
doing
Before
the
you close,
session, yeah, at the
before you close,
mhm.
I'm glad you brought your brother up, and because I do serve, it's important to know my paperwork gets to any unit that before I go. And so when someone says to me, you're black or you're African American, I say, no, it's not true, but I can educate you. And
Ha.
that was the thing that your brother was able to do.
Oh yeah.
Because
Oh
when
yeah.
he signed up, and his race
Yes, sir.
was American Indian.
And he was 6'6.5". No.
Put a little intimidation behind that, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So doing the session Native Americans at 1619, Dr. Erica Coleman, somebody that I know, an assistant professor at the University of Delaware, who is of Rappahannock and African American descent, discussed how the term Negro might actually be referring to an American Indian. They just called us everything that they wanted to call us, you know. And she had a book. A book is called "That the Blood Stay Pure." I read that book 4 or 5 times. She was also, I did an interview with her. So I'm thinking that in the very near future, I could get you, Jameel, to come back and get Erica Coleman and a few other Native people that harbor on telling the truth about us as a people, not a race of people, as a people. You know, would you be interested in doing that?
Uncle Jay, whenever you call me, you know I'm there.
Okay. So, if you got any closing thoughts, would you take a couple of minutes and tell us your closing thoughts?
I would like to thank you, Sandra, Les, for inviting me on the show today. It really has been awesome. I really hope, and this is one of the things that I've been thinking about, is doing a book drive to raise funds to purchase a large number of my books to donate it, because this information needs to be given. If I could give this book away, I would. Initially, I wanted to sell a book for $25 a piece, but unfortunately, Amazon charges me $26.88 per copy just to print it.
Hmm.
So I'm trying to find ways that we can donate this book to our people through schools. I'm thinking it through, and hopefully I'll find a way to do that, because it's important that it just gets in the hand. If you read it and hear me in my words, talking to my children. And when I say my children, that's 8 to 80, blind, crippled, or crazy, who can read.
Yes. Yes.
That's coming from inside. This wasn't this started out for my children, but there's so many more people that really want to know the truth. And there's enough information to get them started to say, whoa, wait a minute, something's wrong. So
everybody
that's
can,
what I hope.
our listeners can buy this book and read it, or donate it to a student, have the student read it and write a report on it, have a student read it and learn about it, learn something specific to them that is going to be something they want to educate people about. So, the cost of the book, it's a drop in the hat when you consider what can happen from somebody reading it and learning about what's in it.
Well, let me say something. As I read your book, I heard you speak to me from your soul. A lot of writers can't write from their souls. You write from your soul, the souls of your ancestors, because they are in you.
Yes, sir.
You can't get around that, I'm inviting you to come back in the future. And anything anybody else got to say before I give my closing words? We're gonna
still do the
yeah,
still talk about
yeah.
okay.
We're gonna do a dedication to my good friend who was like one of my second moms, Karen Collins. Can we put that information up, Leslie? That lady in the hat is Karen Collins, and that man sitting beside her was in the last year of his life, Dennis Banks. The next one, we got more, right? American Indian boarding schools. She actually went to a boarding school, and she attended that boarding school along with the great movie actor, Wes Studi.
So for those that don't know, we very, very sadly lost Karen Collins today.
Yeah.
And it was very unexpected. And a lot of people are now grieving and will be grieving for a long time over her. She lived a beautiful life.
That's
That
it right
was
there. Yeah.
Yeah, that was us with Karen. I believe that was last year, Jay, at a powwow we went to.
2 years ago. 2 years ago in Delaware.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah. And Karen was a long time member of the American Indian Society of Washington, D.C.
One of the founders.
One of the founders. So that organization, AISDC, was kind of her heart. It was at her heart. Karen was involved in everything AIS represented. And, AIS was actually formed in 1966.
Right.
And, was formed in this area, in the DC area, in order to unite indigenous people, tribes, nations, bands, Alaska Natives, everybody. And AIS was very well known around the world. AIS had distribution and members around the world because there's a lot of military people who are indigenous.
Exactly.
And so AIS was key in some of those unity activities. Karen was one of the key people amongst it. She did so many things. We just went to Carlisle. Every year AIS went to Carlisle, put flowers on the graves of the indigenous children that are there. And she did that every year, I believe, that AIS did it.
Yes, she did. She was one of the organizers.
She was one of the organizers. And Karen had a great heart, a great spirit. She was learning technology. She had gotten to the point where we could have our monthly AIS meetings, and Karen would actually be on Zoom. We would see her on camera. She was the secretary. She's been secretary for many, many years, and she was also on the board for many years. And Karen was Eastern Shawnee of Oklahoma.
Yes, she was.
And she had a beautiful spirit. She really wanted unity, for not just for Indigenous people, but she wanted representation of Indigenous people. She wanted unity of Indigenous people, and she lived that life. And we are going to miss her so much.
Absolutely. And I would like to say that Karen Collins was a spark in my life. There was not one time that I would call her and she would answer the phone. She said, "What do you want, baby?" uh, I said, "I don't want nothing. I just wanted to talk to you to see how you were doing." She says, "Well, I'm glad you called me, but I want to tell you all the last experience that I had with Karen Collins. It was 2 weeks ago, I believe, when we were down in Thoroughfare, Virginia. And we had wrapped up this protest against these contractors wanting to desecrate Native graves along with Black slave graves. And at the end, I was standing outside and she came out there. She says, "Why are you out here?" I said, "Because it's over." And then she says, "Come here, I want to tell you something." And she whispered in my ear, I'm sorry, I might shed some tears, but she said, "This is probably the last time I will see you here on earth."
Mm.
She says, "But continue to do what you do, and I will see you again." And then I got this news today from Sandra, and it finally hit me like somebody picked up a brick and hit me in my head with it, that she was telling me, "I'll see you later." So, Karen, I know your spirit is still here. I just want to say to you, I will see you again. And as the old folks used to say, save a seat for me, because I'll be
Mm.
there one day.
Around the council fire.
And Vern and Mercedes, my mom, a whole bunch of people. I'm not in a rush to get there, so don't y'all do nothing over on the other side to get me there quicker, because I still got work to do. But I will see all of you again, because I love all of you dearly and deeply.
And Jay, our listeners, you did a podcast last September with Karen.
Yeah.
So that podcast is still available. People can listen to it on nightwolfproductions.media, and there's a podcast page. So there's a podcast there called Nostalgia versus Reality. You can hear Karen Collins having a beautiful, beautiful chat with Jay from last year, talking about her life and her history and her memories, and it's really beautiful. So check that out.
Okay, so I will leave you all with these words. My grandfather, Lem, on my mom's side, the Cherokee side, would always say to us when we were little kids, "Your brother don't always have to look like you to be your brother." And he would always say, "It's not about the pigmentation of my skin, the texture of my hair, or the clothes I wear. It's not about the food you eat. It's not about your customs or traditions. It's not about any of that. It's not about who you pray to, that deity, and call your God." And he would look at us and say, "Do you know what it's about?" And the first time he said that to us, we were like sitting there. "What are you talking about, Grandpa?" "It's how you treat my heart. That's what it's all about. Start talking to each other and not at each other. Be slow to anger, because sometimes somebody might say something and don't mean it the way you took it. We got enough fighting going on in this world. So just be kind, be patient, and be understanding." Until next week, in the Cherokee words, Dana da go ai wado. Talk to you next week. Peace out.